We're back for part 2 of the ATC200S and 185S restorations. After getting the 200 running, and I'm pretty sure that the 185 will run, I'm now going to pull it all apart piece by piece and clean everything. I can't tell you how dirty and greasy and grimy this seat was, but as you can see, it really came clean, and I'm going to have this looking like brand new. Just got to keep cleaning. And it had the original toolkit that had never been out, and I'm going to take each piece out and try and restore each piece. Now I'm really lucky because this is not rusted. Most of the time these things are so rusted that you can't even see the plating. It still moves. These are going to really detail out nice. And I'm going to save the bag. I'm sure I can save the bag. Probably get a new strap. The rack is off, which allows you to lift up your toolbox all the way. It gets in the way, that rack. So, decisions. The rack is all cleaned up, but you know, it's had a little bit of use. You know, it's not dented, it's straight. So my choice is, do I put it back on or not? And I may put it back on. The holes will keep me from using these fenders here, or this rear fender setup. So I'll have to look into what that is going to run. And I'm sure I can find it. But then I would be looking for decals. Not that these are in the best shape, but you know, cleaned up, these are going to look great. And it's going to give it that patina. So we just keep pulling it apart. Welcome back. So this is the next episode in the ATC 200S 1984. And because I was trying to do both these videos, the 185 and the 200 at the same time, it's not working out. So I went ahead and we did the 185, and that's all on my channel. So we're back to the 200S. So the 200S had some issues, and the first one is the oil seal underneath the pulse sensor. So I've got that taken apart, and I think I show that in one of my other videos, so I'm not going to go into that, but I'm going to just tell you what I'm going to do on this one, or at least what I think I'm going to do, because it's really a fluid time with this one. It's kind of rider quality, kind of restoration, I don't know. I'm not going to do a complete frame off, although I'm going to pull the engine, and I've concluded I'm going to soda blast it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug all the holes, and I'm going to give it the soda blasting, which I've done before. It works really well. So hopefully it'll get me a shiny motor to start with, and I'll clean up the frame, probably paint the exhaust, and maybe do a little repair on it. But that allows me to take off this bottom peg mount that's just totally greased out, and clean the entire frame with that motor out. So the first step is this seal, and we'll get right to that. Since I'm kind of in the job already, you take a nail, okay, and you put it on the flat surface of the seal, and you try your best. I couldn't do it here, but I did get it on the top. To get that to go through the sheet metal, or the little little metal on the seal, and it's safe to go in there. Once you've got a hole, then you can install a screw, and I'm going to show you how that seal comes out with a pair of pliers. So to be fair, I actually have it starting to come out already, but I didn't have to do much. But I'm bridging this side case here with the head of the screw, and I'm able to just apply a little bit of force, and we're going to see that I'm probably going to need to put a screw on the other side eventually. Maybe, maybe not. There we go. Look at that. The whole seal came out, and there it is. And as you can see, the screw goes through the metal, and you could use a smaller screw and maybe a sharper little nail, but you know, all in all, it gets it out. And then I take a little lacquer thinner, and I'm sure there's other ways. Get a Q-tip. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to try and clean the surface as best I can. And it's pretty clean inside. It's just a little lip right there. The little lip's got a little bit of a ridge to it, so I want nothing in there that's going to get in the way of the new one going in. All that cleaned up. And probably do it one more time. And a pulse generator seal. And a little bit of grease, just to kind of lubricate the inside of the seal. Come on now. Oh geez. I'll put it on the surface area there, right on the seal itself, and a little around. Just help it go on. We're going to fit it over the shaft. Get it kind of lined up. I doubt it's going to be any real big problem putting this in. So I've got my socket. Gently take it in most of the way and make sure it's in there square. Use a little more right here. There's actually a back, so you'll know in your bottom. And there it is. I was dreading that too. No big deal. So, seal's in. I'm going to put this all back together. We'll just do that right in front of you here. It's an alignment notch, and there's a pin right on the top. It just slides right on in. And there it is. Then this will only go in one way, I believe. Let's see if it'll go in 180 degrees. Look at that, it will go in 180 degrees. And that's actually in there deeper. No, it's in the same. But I'm pretty sure that's where I had it. And we can check by lining up our timing marks. Pretty sure that would be top dead center. So I'll do that, get back to you. The seal is in. I got the cover on. and I took it out and started it. It ran okay, but there's definitely some carburetor work to be done. So that is something I've got to do, and don't forget. So now I've drained the oil, and the oil leak was from this. Basically, it's foobar. You can see that the casing itself is just completely broke away, and they put some sort of an O-ring on it so that it would somewhat seal. And I've got the exhaust, all the exhaust bolts are just rusted together. I'm getting some of them out now. So that is going to be an issue because this is rusted out and the baffle is right here. So I'm going to have to do some work. I've looked to see if I can find these used, and they are not in any better shape. The ones that I've looked at so far. Maybe I'll get lucky and get one. I know you could run it just open pipe, but I need the the spark arresting feature of having that baffle in. And it may not even need the baffle to still be spark arresting, but the guys out here that enforce our off-road stickers, they really don't know, so they're just gonna cite you. And I'm gonna probably have to drill this out. I got lucky and got this one out, and so now I'm gonna take this and this off and get the exhaust pipe out of here if I can. Then I'm gonna remount it when I'm doing the soda blasting to really plug that hole. I'm going to actually put everything I can on this bike, on this motor, to keep it sealed up for the soda blasting. So I'm just going to start disassembling from here, and we'll see how far I get. And I'm going to probably take the whole front end apart after I get the motor out. So let's start with the exhaust and hopefully get this motor out. Muffler's off. Getting the foot brake off. Front and rear brake cables are off. Alright, the brake lever's off. All the motor mount bolts are out. And the bracket's here. So next, the motor comes out. Just lifts right out. Alright, let's just see if we can just lift it on out of here. Look at that. Easy as can be. So now, got it on my handy dandy roller stand, which I can take this anywhere. So that's a big step. I think there's a little dirt in there. Just a little built up over the years. But you know what that does is that keeps the black from oxidizing and turning, white. Unlike up here, you can see how it's gotten dried. Once I clean all this out, I'm sure I'm going to see just nice, beautiful black paint, which is what I want. This is probably not news to all of you ATC aficionados. But since I only do a restoration on one particular model at a time, I can't do two ATC200s and make two, 6-part videos on restorations on this very same bike, or else nobody really would watch the second one. So I'm forced to, basically do brand new to me, never worked on sort of motorcycles, and then just apply the normal restoration processes to it. So during the disassembly here, I really didn't know if this was it looked to me like it was factory, but it's not, because these are 7/16 bolts, and this looks a little bit kind of a aftermarket style mounting. So that can come off. I don't need to restore it, and I'm not going to put it back on. There's no reason to. And that'll leave a nice axle exposed there. It took a little bit of pounding to get this hub off here, but now that I was able to expose the chain, now it's not necessarily real rusty, and it's an O-ring chain, so I'm not so sure if the chain had not been replaced. I kind of doubt it, but the teeth are all in good shape. Try and get down here where you can see it. There's a little bit of oblonging, but you know, it's a rider. It's not going to see any real sustained rides. It's, you know, to change this would be a little premature, but cleaning it all up, lubing it, getting it to spin much nicer than it does now will be a huge gain. And I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this casing off and pull the sprocket and this hub here, because I've got a problem with the brake. It's frozen, and I know I'm going to need to get into here, into this housing. So I'll get it down to where I've got this off, and I'm almost ready to open this up, or I've opened this up. The axle came out, and everything came out real easy. All these threads are in great shape. The splines are perfect. And you can see there's no rust or water in here, so I'm going to check the bearings, but I think that's good. But there is one casualty, and that is I couldn't get, the brake lever was frozen. So this is all, you know, it needs to be cleaned up. But look at this. Completely delaminated. And, oh, look at that. So all that's got to be renewed, which is not too difficult or expensive. And believe it or not, this will shine up and it'll look perfect. So we're getting closer to being able to start on the front end. So the reason, well, I mean, the brakes were gone, but this was completely frozen. So a little bit of PB blaster and hammering it back and forth. Now, actually, it'll come back with the spring on its own. So I'll get all that taken out. We'll clean all this up. Well, the better part of the rear of this frame is stripped. So I am moving on to the front. I've got the handlebars off, headlight, all the wiring out of the way. And let me tell you something about these front ends. My 185 over there, it would not come off. This axle nut would not come loose. And I don't know if this is going to be any different, because it's got a bad bearing, you know. I mean, it's more narfed up and messed up than the 185. But let's see. Actually, I know. It is actually loosening up. I used the impact on it, and the thing is backing out, which, unbelievable. I cannot believe it's going to do it. So we should be able to get this front tire off real quick. Well, I got it off. I could not believe I got the front axle off of this. But the issue is that because that wheel was just wobbling around with no bearing, it completely screwed up this collar. And well, this is what's left of the bearing, which it's just slid off. I mean, I had persuaded a little. So they wanted $86 for a used one, and I couldn't find a single other sold one to see if that was too much. Then I looked for the complete axle with the collar on it, and that was about $110. But I went out and I looked at all of my junk ATVs, ATCs, and I found that a 1986 125M shim fits perfect. So bingo. And I was told by the parts manager that that wouldn't work, so we're going to have words. All right, the front forks are out. It took a little prying. I had to jam that up in there, but they are out. And now I'm draining them. And we're going to rebuild them. And I think I'm actually going to refinish the forks. Since I go through the whole rebuilding process on my videos on the 185S, and that's how to restore a Honda 185S Part 3. It'll show you everything on how to pull these apart and how to restore the finish and put them back together. So this is probably a good time for me to end this segment because I pretty much have this thing down to a point where everything from here, you know, including this steering stem and the bearings, which is it's really smooth and nice. I'm sure I'm not going to have any issues just re-greasing. But anyhow, all of that is in my previous ATC 185, and they share a lot of these parts. So these forks I think are identical. I think the front tire and rim and all that is identical. I think the headlight hardware that hold the headlight here is identical in the 185. So but I'm going to do this one a little differently because this is going to be more of a super detail as opposed to a restoration. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump forward to the cleaning of all these parts and getting the grunge out of every corner of this thing. And in the meantime, I'm also going to order a lot of parts because I am totally disassembled. I've got my parts list, so I can go ahead and get all that stuff coming. So this is a good time to end it. Parts manager here, Chico, has got the next leg of this. He's going to have to do all the parts ordering, and that might interfere with his nap. So what do you think, Chico? Are you going to be able to order those parts? You told me that shim, you know, that front collar wasn't going to work. Now, we got to talk about that. I found it out in the boneyard. You didn't even go look. Oh, yeah, you're going to look away, right? Come on, Chico. Come on, let's order those parts. So now I've got Chico on those parts. They're going to get here. So until the next one, I think I'm just going to ship 5 ATCs out there to Shingletown for their parade. Just send them all 5 of the 83s, and they can ride a complete 83 lineup of Hondas as if it was back in 83, and you know, that might make them happy. So anyway, we'll see you on the next video.